Hi, Don Janice and Wendy Lee Baldwin Hargett, back again for Lightweavings podcast. We are delighted to be here with you today. And this is where we ask that question: what has dimmed your light, and are you ready to do something about it? We talk about topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable for some, but this is where the magic happens and the breakthrough happens. And Wendy and I were just talking about a subject that we do talk about often because it's a big part of our lives for all of us. It's part of the process, and it's letting go.
Mm.
Letting go. And there's so many things we can talk about letting go about, but it's just there's a couple things in our lives right now that we each found were no longer really serving us the purpose that we had initially intended. And because things do evolve, don't they, Wendy?
Yes, they do. Yes. I love how you just summarized that. It no longer serves us the way we thought that it would.
Well, you know me, that's my superpower. I'm all
Yes,
about
it is.
summarizing. Yeah, I've recently let go of a group that I met with every week for the last several years. And um, it's just like there's just a lot of new things on my plate. And in order to make room enough for the energy that we want to give the new things, we have to let go of something. We have to make space. And I made that decision today, and it's empowering to make that decision. I love the people, I love the concept, but something had to give. And I decided. Feels good to decide. Yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your decision.
Thank you.
And it's really empowering that you notice how it feels to let that go. And you listen to your higher self, your all knowing, whatever you want to call it. And now you're going to, yeah, free up that space to do other things. I know there are a lot of things that you want to accomplish, and that's going to just give you that space and the more energy to do that.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. Everything is energy. And when we make space, we create room to, have the energy in that space in our lives that we want, that we need, that we
Hmm.
crave. And so just being aware of that is kind of a big deal,
Hmm.
realizing what we're doing with our time and space.
Hmm.
And yeah, so sometimes things we have a certain intention, but we hang on to that thing that we put out there because of that intention, and we think that we must do this because we decided at one point that we must do this by a certain date, in a certain way, every single week or whatever it is. And for me, it's hard for me to say no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I always try to reschedule things, put things in order, and try to fit things in. And I find myself sometimes in overwhelm because of it.
Hmm. Yeah, and sometimes we hang on to those things, commitments that we've made out of feeling obligated. It's like, yeah, we made this commitment, so now I have to do it. And whenever we tell ourselves that we have to do it to any level, it's kind of like we talked before about should, it's the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. you know, and so there's that obligation, and we can also be afraid of upsetting other people.
Hmm. Yeah. And I do care about what others think and how others feel, and I know you do too. It's part of our makeup, especially if you're an empath, because it affects me. How somebody else feels in my presence affects me greatly. However, sometimes we free other people up when we let it go.
Hmm.
We give
Yes.
them the power then to make another decision too. So that's another way of thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, and the subject of letting go, it's so big. Like you said at the beginning, we can talk about this. I'm sure it's going to come up in multiple conversations because there's so much to let go of. Love your example of letting go of this group that you were in. Uh, I was in not the same kind of a group. It was a group that I started, and I just was feeling challenged, drained, obligated, from a marketing perspective to, you're supposed to do this. And when I made the decision to just let it go, it was so freeing. And there's more letting go. There's letting go of relationships. There's letting go of believing that we are in charge and trying to control everything.
Mm,
And that has been a really long lesson for me to learn, a really big lesson to learn.
mm, me too.
I think it's probably a universal theme because we want so badly to have control over our lives, which makes a lot of sense. And I'll just say this probably starts in childhood where we feel, most of us, that we have no control. And when we grow up, we want to have control. And we're just taught to be fully responsible, to set deadlines, to have these goals and just do, 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 do.
The doing instead of the being. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And when you can understand that it doesn't all have to be about our timing, and that there is a greater source that has a bigger, broader vision.
Mm.
If we just allow ourselves to let go and to sink into that, life starts to shift in positive ways. This is a big concept that I heard for years and years, in the personal growth field. And I would dabble in it, to be honest, just dabble. And whenever I would dabble of letting go, it's like miracles could happen. But then wanting to be in that control, which I know is like a really big life theme for me to work through, then I start setting deadlines for this and that, and it puts so much pressure on you. And then so many things just kind of blew up in my face. They didn't turn out the way that I thought that they should because I was trying to micromanage.
Yes.
Ever done
We're
that,
um
Dawn?
way too often, Wendy. Way too often. In fact, yeah, it has been a theme of my life since probably I got married the first time. When you're filling a role, we're filling a role, um, filling an identity.
Mhm,
And for me, I know I respect and trust people that do what they say they're going to do.
mhm,
And so that has been a theme for me, is like, I must always do what I say I'm going to do. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, now I'm accountable
mhm,
and I have to do it. And if I set a deadline for it, well, then, like you said, the pressure is on
mhm.
and there's more of a chance that it's going to get done. For me, it's a big chance it's going to get done because I've held that in such high regard, to be accountable and trustworthy, especially to myself. So sometimes we set deadlines for ourselves and maybe it's not the right timing.
Mhm.
So we get to take a look at it and decide, with the help of your higher power, whatever that looks like to you, are you in the
Mhm.
flow? Are you in alignment? Does it feel right? Or does something just tell you it's not right? It's usually our gut
Mhm.
that tells us, because they say your gut is your other brain,
Mhm.
and to trust that intuition. And all intuition is trusting what we already know,
Right.
which I thought was a phenomenal definition. Trusting what you already know is what your intuition is. It's nothing mystic or magical. It's just something that you already know in your body and in your mind. And so sometimes when we set a deadline, we do it haphazardly and we're, dead set on getting something done by a certain date or time. And then going along in the flow, you see that maybe there's a little stream that's going to take you a different direction for a while. And then we get to take a look at it and reevaluate our deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, like when we set a deadline, I mean, well, often, and I love that you want to be respectful. I agree with you. It's important to come from a place of integrity. If you say you're going to do something, do the best that you can. However, if it's going in misalignment for where you are, then I know that you would take the responsible path and explain, hey, I intended to do this. However, this has come up and I cannot fulfill this commitment or whatever. There's certainly ways to handle the highest way when you do need to readjust your timeline. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and it's easy to be unrealistic with our timing. let's say you want to accomplish a really big goal, is that realistic timing to do that? And I see this in the coaching world. People will set these great, phenomenal goals. And it's like, okay, well, let's chunk it down. Is this realistic? What could possibly get in your way to stop you from achieving that? Because we don't factor in life's twists and turns. And when that happens, then we feel really bad about ourselves. We start picking on ourselves. Well, I was stupid. I didn't do this. I'm lazy. I'm that. And that's not the case. We just didn't factor in life. We didn't factor in, like you said, the perfect timing.
Yes. And isn't it so interesting that we are so hard on ourselves?
Oh, we
We
are.
literally, that shit talker just comes back and
Yeah.
says those terrible things about ourselves if we don't reach a goal that we set. I mean, I wouldn't talk like that to you if you had a goal that you weren't going to reach. I wouldn't say those mean things to you because I adore you. Why am I doing that to myself? I'm supposed to love myself. Self-love
Hmm.
is really important in order to be the best person I can be. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing that we need to like address. It's like that. Um, and sometimes, setting too stringent of rules for ourselves and goals and um, maybe setting ourselves up for too many obligations
Hmm.
is not good for ourselves.
Yeah. 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 We can definitely overbook ourselves, and that is stress, but that can be like a habit. I used to overbook myself all the time, just pile on, just overload. And then one day I had this aha that I was subconsciously benefiting from this, trying to be the people pleaser,
Yeah.
trying to live up to other people's expectations. And when you realize that you're behaving that way, it's like, ah, I don't have to do this. I mean, when you step back and you observe as an observer, as the watcher, that we've talked about before, you can ask yourself, do I really have to drive myself nuts doing this? Because I'm making myself sick here from
I'm
overload.
laughing because what you're saying is ringing very true to me.
Uh,
I drive myself nuts.
yeah, yeah, we
Um,
do. Yeah.
yeah,
And
I'm sure there's a lot of you out there listening that can relate to this too. I mean, are you doing this? Are we
yeah,
doing this to ourselves? And as the further time goes along, the more we pile up on and we don't release anything, we don't make space for it. We have to have space.
we do. And what I've learned from other experts is piling on all that stress from overloading yourself is actually it becomes like an addiction because it's feeding our brain. Our brain gets in that feeding frenzy, and then we get some sort of satisfaction at it. So, like chaos can be, or they say the stress, chaos, same thing, a lot of ways. It's
Mhm.
very addicting. And
Yeah.
so when you can look at that behavior as an addictive behavior, I mean, I don't want to be
Mhm.
seen as an addict, addicted to
Yes.
stress. That
Addicted
sounds,
to stress. That sounds worse than anything else. Yeah.
yeah, because it's self-induced, it's like, dang, pull back and breathe.
So the way you said step back, and that is like literal, almost literally in your brain, you can see your self taking a step back and looking at the situation from a wider view
Hmm.
and assessing it more clearly because that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. Well, until you step back away from it, then you can see the forest and
Hmm.
see what's out of alignment, what doesn't fit, what doesn't work. And so that's an exercise that we can do.
Yeah.
I know I do that in my home. I will go into a room and something's not feeling right,
Hmm.
and I will step to the very edge of the room and to be able to see as much of the room as possible at once, stepping back
Hmm.
and then looking at it from a different eye, like maybe from somebody that does home design or helps people with their spaces to make them more comfortable for them. What needs to go? That's usually what I do is I will do that in my home. I will
Hmm.
go, okay, what needs to go? That is letting go. That is
Hmm.
creating space and releasing um, uh, in that example. And we can do that in our entire lives. We can do that with our schedule. We can do that maybe sometimes with people,
For
but
sure.
what needs to go? Sometimes there is somebody causing chaos
Yeah.
because maybe they're addicted to that.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they are gone forever, but they get to go in the outer circle maybe, or
Hmm.
maybe it's even forever, who knows? But
Right.
stepping back is super important in understanding what to let go of, at
Hmm.
least. And if we need more space, or if we maybe need to fill some space sometimes, there's the other side too.
That's true.
Yeah. Like who
Yeah.
needs to be in my life to make it more balanced? Uh,
Yeah.
and for me, it's lots of times it's somebody that's set a higher bar than I have for themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes me reach higher.
And that's what we get to do. I love your example of assessing the room and clearing out. And you're right, it does carry over to people, and that's really challenging to let go of relationships, or it can be. And a lot of times we're not even taught how to properly let go of relationships. Some people, you know, want to pick a fight. Some people ghost you, you know. I've had that happen where somebody I thought was a really great friend and they decided that they were complete in our friendship, and instead of having the maturity to say, hey, this is, let's talk about this. I'm not feeling empowered in this relationship anymore, whatever, let's go our own ways. It's just, lies and ghosting.
Mm,
And
that's so hard. It's so hard. It's so insulting to be ghosted.
yeah.
And you're right, it is not a mature way to handle that. I have to say that I've learned that in my own life for myself,
Hmm.
that I've been guilty of that before, and it has not served me well. And so
Hmm.
I've learned now that that is not the best way to, handle any kind of a relationship, whether it's you're no longer going to have that person in your life, or um maybe it's just a situation that was uncomfortable. And instead of ghosting somebody and ruining the whole relationship, it can be repaired if you have a conversation with them.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So that concept of letting go is, like I said, we can talk about this for weeks
Hmm.
nonstop. But the content, the context of making space in your life, I think is what we're really talking about here. Making space. And doesn't it feel good? Like, I know it feels great when I fill up the back of my car with stuff that's going to go to Goodwill and make
Hmm.
space in my home. It feels good to clear clutter, doesn't it?
How it absolutely does. I mean, because as you know, everything is energy, and clutter is chaos.
Mm.
So, yeah. Yeah, I feel that a really big factor in letting go is just trusting. And trust is such a challenge for so many of us, because who hasn't been betrayed at some time or other? Who hasn't made a choice that didn't work out the way that you thought it was going to work out? And all these different factors that can happen with us that can really challenge us in the trust area. Letting go of relationships, trusting that you're going to be okay, and trusting that someone that is, meeting you where you're at now to come in, trusting yourself, stepping away from the group you're in, that these people are still going to want to be your friend, and that, you're not going to be losing the right people. There's just so many elements of trust there, trusting a higher source, trusting that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, and that trust comes easier as we go along and practice it, because
Hmm.
we I know in my life, especially recently, when I've let go completely and said, "Okay, universe, you got this."
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing a good job with it, apparently. So can you just take this?
Yeah.
And there's always almost an instant result
Right.
slash answer slash whatever you want to call it. But I see proof of the goodness of doing that almost instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I wasn't able to do well, somebody else picks it up and does it better,
Mm-hmm.
and the situation gets better. And that is so obvious to me when it happens, because it does happen instantly. It's almost like the universe, God, your higher power, whatever you want to call it, knows me and knows that I need instant proof so that I can trust. And that has been happening for me. And
Right.
so that then I call faith. That faith gets stronger and stronger
Yeah.
in being able to let go of certain things and situations and control,
Mm-hmm.
which is control. I'll say it again.
Mm-hmm.
I am letting go of some control in my life. And it has been phenomenal. The results has been phenomenal in my life. I can't even tell you how good it's been. I wouldn't be able to describe it, well enough. And that then develops my trust
Mm-hmm.
and faith in being able to let go of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a practice, and it gets easier as you go.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you get instant results, and that can happen a lot. And on the flip side, sometimes you don't get instant results.
Mhm.
And that's where the trust comes in.
Wow.
It's having that faith and allowing whatever it is to unfold in perfect timing, because like we've talked before, we're not the only players in our game of life and our
We're not.
dreams and
No.
everything. And so we get to let go and have yeah, because like we talked at the very beginning, God, source, whatever, can see everything. We can't. We can only see what's right in front of us. And sometimes, like all the beautiful unfolding for you, the other players in the game were ready too.
Mm.
And so maybe they were just waiting for you to be ready. Who knows? I don't know.
Yes.
Uh,
We
and
don't know, do we?
no, we don't. We absolutely don't. But
No. But we
anyway,
can we can look back though later and probably see it.
yeah, good
We
point.
just can't when we're in the moment. Again, the
Right,
forest for the trees. Yeah.
right, right.
Hmm. That was profound. That was really good. We're not the only players. It's not all about me.
Dang it. I want it to be all about me.
Oh, sometimes it's nice that it's not. Yeah. Good to
Uh,
be able to step back again and watch others go through their journey and succeed and do well.
mhm.
Yeah, that's rewarding all by itself.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess maybe a little summary about that is if something is meant to be for us, it's going to be for us in the perfect timing with the trust that it's going to unfold. And if it's not meant for us, then, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that there's something different, something more expansive, better
Mhm.
that we just can't see.
That's right. Faith.
Yes, that
Faith.
faith.
Faith has the meaning of faith for me has changed lately into this. I used to always think of faith as a religious word,
Mm,
and I realize that it's just a really good word for our sense of self and being, actually
yeah.
being in this world and not thinking we always have to do. It's about
Yeah.
being. Yeah.
Mm,
So this is so good. I just want to thank you, Wendy, for your insight on this. And it's so cool, you guys. When Wendy and I get together, this subject just emerges. Like seriously, 5 minutes before we started recording this,
mhm.
things in our life were happening, and it was obvious this was the topic that somebody out there, one of you, needed to hear today. That letting go of something that is really giving you overwhelm or no longer serving you, and maybe it's a few things in your life when you step back and take a look at it. Maybe it's a piece of something, but just know that Now you've made space for something better and bigger and more expansive to come into your life, like Wendy just said. And to be confident. Once you've made a decision, go forward with confidence, knowing it's the right decision. No regrets.
Yeah, love that. And this podcast, YouTube, is such a prime example of not being in control and just trusting, because we don't control this.
No.
We just, I mean, yes, I pushed the record button. I mean, do the technical controlling.
Yeah.
We show up, but we just trust that the right topic is going to come up at the right time. There's, yeah. I see some people on YouTube, which is fantastic. They'll say, coming up, I'm going to be talking about this, talking about that. And it's like, how can you know in advance what you're going to be talking about? I
Yeah.
just, I mean, some people are, that works really well for them. And I guess that's their lane of trust. And this is our lane of trust and letting go and practicing that. I just want to invite everybody to pause and do what we talked about earlier and step back, view the room differently, whether that room is a physical room in your house or that room is your life. And check in with yourself and ask, where am I micromanaging? Where am I feeling that I have to be in control? And letting go in baby steps, if that's what's needed, which for humans, that's what most of us need, are baby steps, until it just becomes more and more comfortable and more natural. And just play with it. Maybe go into it with that playful energy of, I wonder what would happen if I let go of, fill in the blanks, and just see what happens.
Yeah. Can always pick things back up again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can. And
Yeah.
I've done that and then let it go again. I went, nope, it was better when I let go of it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Wendy, thank you so much. This podcast, I think today, this episode is very precise, and yet the meaning is huge,
Mhm.
because there's so many different places in our life that this can be applied. So this is, sometimes it's a hard topic for people to talk about letting go, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
people, sometimes it's situations, sometimes it's they're moving. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
moving to another country or to a different city, and that's like a huge deal for them.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but how
Mhm.
brave to take a step forward in faith and trust. That
Mhm.
means you're brave. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's a good
Yeah.
quality.
Oh, definitely. Yes. And I feel one little nugget left to share on this is, when you find yourself needing to feel like you have to have that control, afraid to let go, you can ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this?
Mm,
And
mhm.
then just sit back and listen, and you will be surprised. Guaranteed, you will be surprised at the stories that you're telling yourself about that.
Yeah, lots of times it's about identity that we're hanging on to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. And thank you, all of you, for showing up for yourself here today and either watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your favorite podcast app. You care about yourself and your life. Otherwise, you
Mhm.
wouldn't be here listening all the way through. And we appreciate you for that. Please like or subscribe to whatever platform you're on. It helps us um, be able to get the word out there more, because it gets shown to more people. So we want to thank you for being here. All right, Wendy.
Yes. Thank you, Dawn. Again, yes, thank you, everybody that's listening. And I will just throw in there, if anybody feels that they need, appreciate some extra support, in this, you and I we do this for, this is our life calling, to help people to get through and navigate the letting go, the healing, and to just live elevated. My tagline in my business is elevated living in a new era. We are in a new era, and it is time to live elevated, higher than you knew was even possible. And we just encourage all of you to just be happy, be your best self. Always remember that you're loved and that you matter.
That's the truth. All right. Thank you again. And we will see you or hear you. We won't hear you, but you'll hear us.
We'd
Um,
love to hear from you.
yes, we would. Yeah, please make a comment if you can. And also our contact information is always below.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all
All
right.
right. Thank you, Dawn. This has been wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.